morning, right? I want everybody to participate, right? You know, but before we lift up our voices, before we fight to stop Asian hate, before we voice our desire to end, hate and racism in our country, what I would like to do is take about 30 seconds to remember those that have unnecessarily been killed in Atlanta. Park Sun-jung, Kim Hyun-jung, Kim Sun-ja, Yoo Young-am, Delana Ashley Young, Sheo-jae Emily Tan, Tao Yu-fang, and Paul Andre Michaels. Faces getting slashed, a mother being peed on in the subway station, and nobody did anything about it, right? And an elderly, so helpless, vulnerable, and yet crushed and beaten and killed. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Cheryl Lee. I'm a former council member from City of Shoreline, but I'm here as a proud American, proud Korean American, proud Asian.
My name is Sung Park from Seattle, Washington State Korean Association and Seattle Evergreen Coalition. Proclamation. We call for end to hate and violence against Asian and Pacific Islanders. Stop Asian hate!
Stop Asian hate!
We understand the root of what causes the horrific incidences that we witnessed just over a week ago in Atlanta. But let us remember, it did not start in Atlanta. We know even before then, incidences of a family have been silent, but no one has been listening. Right. But no more. No more. We stand here proud in the land of Martin Luther King County, who reminds us that an injury to any one of us is an injury to all. And in remembering the love of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said the only thing that can combat hate is love.
I'm here in solidarity to reflect upon and to stand against the hatred and the racism that has led to an increasing number of violent acts against our Black and our Indigenous and our Asian American people in this country. We want to announce that it is wrong and call out the motivation and foundation of it, and it is racism and it is hatred. And it is not new in this country. And it comes at times most often of economic stress. You can look to 1895 when we had economic stress and Chinese miners were killed in Wyoming and Chinese hop pickers were killed in Issaquah, right here in King County. And then they were forced from the city out because of hatred and fear. And then you can turn to the 20th century and the 1940s, when again, time of strife, war, led to the forced removal and incarceration of our Japanese American citizens, 120,000 removed, possessions taken, property sold at deep discount, if anything at all. And they do it more so when you have immoral, racist leadership. And that is what unfortunately occurred in this country in the previous 4 years. And it was 1 year ago that the president of this country called the COVID-19 virus the Chinese virus and led to a new wave of hatred and violence against Asian Americans in this country. And that is the source, and we've got to call it out and stop it.
Thank you for having the Seattle Police Department stand with our AAPI community, our Korean community. I've seen the devastating impacts for our AAPI communities that felt because of the pandemic, not only the financial difficulties, but the rise in bias incidents and crimes that have targeted our communities. We've experienced a record number of bias instances. This is not Seattle. We cannot allow hate and racism to continue in 2021. For the 245 years that our country has existed, We've seen enough hate. We've seen our worlds at war because of hate. We continue to see people dehumanize others because it allows them to justify their action. And today, here we take a stand. No more. We cannot tolerate this in our city. We will continue to deal with the challenges as our communities open up. Please continue to report bias instances. We will not allow this to occur.
Hello everyone, my name is Reverend Eugene Cho. I'm a pastor here in Seattle, and right now I am the president of an organization based in DC called Bread for the World, an advocacy organization. Now as a pastor, I don't want to infringe on anyone's beliefs here, but I do want you to know that as a Christian, I take the Bible very seriously, about loving our neighbors, about not repaying evil with evil, to forgive our enemies. At the same time, I want you to know there's a story in which Jesus, seeing injustice, he flips tables. Now, anytime we have situations when our Asian elderly are being attacked, it is time to flip the tables. Anytime we see an eroticization and the attack on Asian women, it is time to flip the tables. Anytime we are told to go back home, it is time to flip the tables. Now, I want folks to know who think that we should go back home, this is our home. Our home. We helped build this country. Yes. We helped build the railroads and the farms and factories and the mines, and the list goes on. We helped build schools and hospitals. We are teachers and educators. We have small businesses and large businesses. My point, friends, is that this is our home. Yes. So what can we do? Now, I just want to share three brief things. Three things that we can do. And number one, we have to speak up.
That's right.
We have to speak up.
That's right.
Even right now, make some noise. I'm not just talking about this rally. After this rally, at your workplaces, at your schools, in your churches, in your communities, in your neighborhoods, anytime you hear something that is racist, anytime you hear something that degrades the dignity and humanity of Asian Americans or any people, we must speak up.
By my Asian American brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, grandfathers and grandmothers, not just today, not just last week, but for months and years and decades and hundreds of years. So what I'm about to say to you today is to amplify and reiterate what we have been saying as Asian Americans been a long time, but has not.
I have heard we are the model minority, but we all know that we are the model majority. We are role models. Every one of us, every one of you, we are role models. The recent alarming and horrific increase of hate and violence towards Asian Americans must stop.
That's right.
We must all unite together to fight against racism and discrimination and intolerance wherever and whenever we see it. We cannot remain silent. We must speak up against misinformation.
Stand against racism! Stand against racism! Stand against racism! Stand against racism!
Thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. Well, it was horrific acts of hate and violence that brought about this event. What brings us together this morning is care for community, desire for justice, and love for ourselves and each other. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be with you this morning.
I am tired. I am tired of having to explain our history in this country, to remind everyone that it was the Chinese Americans who created and built the railroads that connected the East and West Coast. Right. That it was our Japanese ancestors who made up the most decorated combat regiment in the history of our military. Right. I am tired of having to remind everyone that Asian American history is American history.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Let us never forget, ever, let us never forget that the harmless jokes, the subtle racism, and the disregard for our history in this country is nothing more than an attempt to perpetuate the institutionalized racism that we experience as Asians in America. They are seeds that are planted and manifests into a situation where a 21-year-old white man feels like he has the right to enter into 3 Asian businesses and kill 6 Asian women. Let it be clear that enough is enough. Friends, let's not forget, and let's pledge today that this fear, this sorrow, this cry for justice that we are feeling today, that led you to be here today, cannot be confined to this single moment. Our community can no longer afford to be reactive. We must be proactive.
That's right!
We must be proactive.
Join me, everyone. No!
No!
Hate must go!
Hate must go!
No! No! Hate must go!
Hate
No! No! Hate must go! No! No! Hate must go! Thank you.
Director of APR. As a Seattle Youth Commissioner Executive, I wanted to show up today because I've learned that 80% of success is showing up. Even though I've been at school every single day for the last 12 years, I haven't learned or heard anything about the history of my people. So I aim to increase the visibility of civic engagement by BIPOC youth. I am here to condemn AAPI hate crimes and to share my Korean American perspectives. The COVID-19 global pandemic highlighted injustices in our legal system and challenged us as we continue to fight against AAPI hate crimes. Instead of focusing on finding vaccines for all, continuous news about anti-AAPI violence consume us. We mourn over the recent tragedy in Atlanta where 8 women were killed, including 4 women of Korean descent. We are still struggling to seek justice, even though our 14th Amendment guarantees equal justice for all.
It is truly unfair. It hurts me seeing us being affected with nothing being done. The thought of my mother, my friends, my community being attacked truly floods my mind with fear. It is now our time to show that we will not stand for this injustice and need change. We must push to spread love, not hate. We must be the change that we want. Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate you guys being here. Let's hear it for the Every generation has an opportunity to stand up for what's right, and this is our time. The third reason that we're here is we're here for the next generation. I have my nephews and nieces over here. Alright? Their names are Andrew, Joshua, Rachel, and Samuel. Alright? We're here for the next generation, so if you're a part of the next generation, can we hear you?
My name is Leandra Croft, and I'm a proud Filipino American. I was born here in Washington,
dear Korean American community leaders, all welcome guests. My name is Winston Lee, President of the United Chinese Americans of Washington. Can you all hear me? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, normally I address crowds at Benaroya Hall and Seattle Symphony and wish them a lovely concert. I am not prepared for this speech that I'm about to give. I'm not here to talk to you about the Seattle Symphony, but I am proud to represent the Seattle Symphony here with you today. I am here because the speaking here inspired me this morning to say something of my own. I have two small stories. You want to hear them? Yeah! When the Atlanta atrocity happened, the musicians of the Seattle Symphony wanted to issue a statement right away saying how awful that is and how it is unacceptable. And we got pushback. We were told, hey, wait, find out first what this is. And you know what? I said, no, we know what this is. We know that this violence is unacceptable and it must stop now. And we issued our statement because we are tired of saying please. If you see it, call it out. Stand tall, stand proud, and never let anybody tell you you don't know what you're talking about, because we are done asking please. We are calling this out. No to racism, no to Asian hate. Thank you very much.
What I keep thinking about is that this is a moment where our kids are watching.
That's right.
Yeah. What are we telling our kids?
Stand against racism.
Right? Are we gonna be silent? Are we gonna continue to be somebody's model minority where we are erased? No! So what does that mean? It's more than it's stop Asian hate, and we cannot be erased. We cannot be silent anymore. We are not somebody's model minority where when someone has a bad day, they feel like they can come and victimize and kill us. No!
And my name is Michael Lee. I'm pastor at All Nations Community Church in Bellevue, Washington. By the way, I just want to ask that this table be cleared because I was so inspired by Pastor Eugene. I'm going to flip this table pretty soon. And I hope you will as well when you go back home. At this point, as the last speaker, I want to ask you the most important question that anyone can ask you. And the question is, what will you do tomorrow? What will you do tomorrow to stand up to racial injustice against Asian Americans, the Pacific Islanders? What will you do tomorrow to fight injustice towards black, indigenous people, and all people of color? What will you do tomorrow? Now, don't get me wrong. You being here, us being here, is a good thing. It's a necessary thing. But just because we showed up here today, it doesn't mean that any problem about racism will be solved tomorrow.
Crowd gathered with a unified message. There is power in numbers, this big crowd yelling in unison. Many in the Asian American community say it hurts that they have to even chant those words. A number of Korean American groups forming today's rally. Organizers say passionate words are not enough. They want to see meaningful change.
The judicial system is not recognizing the crime for what it is. We want them to label it and really think about the perpetrators.
They're hoping this is the turning point.
This is a pivoting moment for us in history, and I really think we need to continue to empower our youth.
Young people like Catherine Kang, who wants to spread awareness through education.
I'm putting together a conversation at my school where students will talk about this, but we really need to get the Korean Americans of our communities together and join with other Asian American groups.
The group Stop AAPI Hate says we had nearly 3,800 incidents over the past year targeting Asian Americans, mostly women. Verbal harassment is happening the most, with 11% of incidents being physical assaults.
I'm so sick.
She says she's thankful that Seattle police detectives worked quickly, leading to the felony hate crime charge. But people here say many incidents are going unpunished or ignored. Seattle Interim Police Chief Adrian Diaz showed up for support and spoke also at today's event.